Welcome to the Half-Assed Heresy. This is my first video on making homemade Sector Imperialis boards, the ones that came with Conquest. My plan is to use very thick, you see how thick, double thick board, go below it and above it to give it the 3D look you get with those £200 boards. First part was to use the boards that came with Conquest to draw out a main template. I'll be doing more intricate ones, but this was just a tester because obviously I'm not going to spend loads of time on something that might not work. So that was my original template drawn, and from that you make sure you do proper templates for each part, and then with again pound shop card cut out the parts of the board that you'll be using. So for the old double-headed eagle, you can start with the base, put the body on and build up the sections to give it a very thin but still 3D look. I'll be doing the same with that, with the boards as well. So imagine a few of the same of that leveled up and then cut into the board, and hopefully we'll get a really good 3D effect. So that's the first part of this. I'm going to work on a really small section first. So there'll be a tester section, and then we'll move on to this really big board that I've got there, which is about, I don't know, a couple of meters by 1 meter, I don't know, but that's the first video anyway. My main plan is to take several of these, maybe 5 or 6 layers, to keep the accuracy so you'd get what equates to like a plastic feel even though it's cardboard. But before we move on, you've got to try all these new things. This was me practice baseboard, and I saw, oh look, what if we just sort of peel off the top layer and leave a pipework looking thing. So this is my current test that. I still think we're going to stick with this one, but we'll see how this turns out with a simple base of lead belcher once it's done. So that's where we are at the moment. At the minute, I think it's just going to end up looking like cardboard. I'm going to persevere, trial and error. I'm going to give it a coat of this to seal it, because I think if we try and paint straight onto that, it's just going to soak up and go squidgy. So to protect it, I'm going to leave it one coat of gloss, and then I'll paint on top. As I said before, I'm going to use the thickness of the card to go below and above it. Now this is only about 1/3 of the thickness of the main piece I'll be using. This is just to practice this, but already you can sort of get an angle, and I'll be using a Pringle lid, something like that, to build up the edges of a crater, and that was just a happy coincidence that there was a hole there for a smaller crater. So there'll be an angled crater here if it goes okay. I find a lot of the time it's the little details that do make all the difference. So rather than just plant it in there, I've slightly trimmed one of the edges, so again it doesn't just look like a Pringles lid. It will be covered in some, what am I going to use, filler, but again just give it that extra bit of angle and edging, something like that. There we go. So that's the Pringle lid, and hopefully when I tidy it up tomorrow it will look like a crater. Then I'll paint that, see how that turns up. Remember, this is just a practice run for how it turns out. Pound shop filler. Top tip, get yourself a glue gun. So much easier for gluing larger things together. The drying time's quick. All you've got to suffer is a few burnt fingers, but it's well worth it. Get yourself a glue gun, really helpful. My personal tip for working on craters is I always make a sort of spider web pattern to start with black. I'll fill the outer sections with a dark brown, the inner sections with a dark grey, and then fade them in together. I always find that explosions look more realistic if you have sort of more damage going out in various areas. The other tip is Citadel paints are expensive. Invest in pound shop acrylics. Whenever you're in the pound shop, as I've said before, just pick up one of each, just one at a time. Within a month or two you'll have a lovely collection. Poster paints as well, just for your big work, big pieces of scenery and stuff. If you're making it yourself, save you a lot of money, because you don't want to use your Citadel paints on that, because it will soak up. You could easily use like half a tub of abandoned black just covering that, I would think. One other thing, buy more black and white than anything else. That's what I run out of the most, and it's always worth investing in the metallics. They're really good for a quid. Save a lot of time later on. That's the black and the grey. I'll wait for it to dry now. Again, it's not even nearly finished, but you get the idea. You want a dark star that will sort of fade out later on when it's finished, but try and mix the colours together so you have edges where obviously the fire's done more damage and the explosion was more severe, going into the lighter grey where, touch wood, there hasn't been that much damage to the grass and stuff. There'll be brown going on top of this as well. Coming up to the end game on the crater, what I do for the final touches is a lot of brown and white, and then just sit dabbling. I'm winging it. You might know a better way yourself, but I just dabble various bits, and then the light bits on the edge. A bit too much there. Sort of dry brushing, but just add highlights where you think they'll go. If you go too much, get darker brown. You can hide it up if need be until you're happy with it. Please be aware this is very rushed. A lot of the filler started coming off on the edges, but again, this is just a practice one. It's okay. I'm not too shabby. I'm going to carry on with it for another hour or so, and then call it done and move on. And that's about as far as I'm going to take this practice. Keep in mind that's only the second crater I've ever did. I did one about a year ago with a World War II project. Didn't look that good. So as a tester, I'm quite happy with that. The things I haven't added, things like cat litter, small boulders, bits of wood, I would have added a lot more, but that's just my tester one. It looks alright. Again, I'm sure there's betters out there, but there might be worse, so I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so I have a confession to make. I did go back to the crater. I didn't think I did it justice. It needed a bit more darkness, I think. But I'm happy with the outcome. Not happy at all with the metallic effect with the cardboard. Back to the drawing board with that one. Really happy with the crater. But obviously that's just the base of it. If I did it for real, there'd be rocks in there, some scaffold maybe, wires, maybe the odd skull or something. But that's how it came out, and that was just filler, Pringle pot, and acrylics. That was it for that. So if I can do it, anyone can do that, and some nice scenery there. Alan approves, and back to the drawing board for what I'm going to do for the sector stuff.